Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and today I am joined by a very, very special guest. Will Robson is a UK comic book writer and artist, editor-in-chief of Speech Comics, and co-host of Batman, the Animated Series podcast. Welcome to the show, Will.
Thank you very much for having me, mate. I'm very happy to be here. An old a team up of mine on the El Marvo.
We've worked together in the past on El Marvo. Will drew an amazing couple of covers for a comic book that me and Mr. Luke Condor wrote and put out a while ago. So a pleasure to have you on the show and to talk about some of your comic projects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nice to finally talk to you in person.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long, long time. No Andy this week. He is off on his holidays. That's all right for some, isn't it? It's all right for some. But I'm absolutely fine and glad to be here with you, Will. And temperature wise, it kind of feels a little bit like I'm on my holidays. Well, at least my nether regions feel like, well, think of that what you will.
It's like being on holiday but being forced to work. It's terrible. It's like, hey, it's hot weather and you have to work. It's like, oh, great.
It's hot weather, but it's almost to the point of hot weather where it's bothersome. You know, it's bothersome. I'm quite a pale man.
Me too. I'm a fat pale man, so anything above 14 degrees and I'm done.
14 degrees. Yeah, you're done.
No, I don't know. 18 degrees, I'd say, is my perfect temperature. A nice semi-cloudy 18-degree spring day, and I'm in heaven.
Now you're talking. But we're almost in autumn. The temperature's dipped a little bit. We're fast approaching October, spooky season, which is where, well, I don't know about you, but I thrive. As soon as the leaves start falling down, I could do a little jig in amongst them.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a Christmas nut. That's my top thing. But Halloween season is like right below it. So,
but what if you're into Christmas and Halloween, it's good because as Halloween starts to end, you're like, oh, I'm a bit disappointed it's ending, but you're like, Christmas countdown's on. Let's do it.
My Christmas countdown has started like now because I'm a freak, and then Halloween's this weird like cocktail you have in the middle of it that goes down very easily, and then like my wife is a Christmas nut as well, and she's like, can we just skip Halloween, go straight to Christmas? I'm like, no, we can't skip Halloween. That's like very important to me.
Yeah, you can, but maybe you can start Christmas on November the 1st. Are you an early decorator?
Oh, big time. Yeah. The moment the like I love Halloween Day, and like I love the trick-or-treaters, and my tradition is I stay home for the trick-or-treaters to arrive. I watch The Simpsons Halloween what is it called? Treehouse of Horrors.
Treehouse of Horror, yeah.
I have those on, and then I deal with the trick-or-treaters, and then happily go to bed, and then the next day I'm listening to Christmas music in the shower, getting ready for the day.
In the shower?
So,
oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Got the fake snow going? What you in the bathroom?
My dandruff is my fake snow, so that I have that going.
Oh, I don't believe that
all year round. I have that Christmas.
Oh, are you celebrating Christmas? Because you're ever so flaky. No. That's just unfortunately it's me. I don't have that problem. It's fine.
I mean, if I was bald, I'd still have that fucking problem. I guarantee you.
There we go. It affects us all in different ways. One thing, obviously, I wanted to talk about from the get go is Outbreaks, the comic that obviously issue 1 is been and gone. Well, I don't mean been and gone. It's still available on Kickstarter.
Yeah, no one cares about it anymore. It's gone.
What's that?
It's done. Who cares?
Finished. I've read that one. It's done. I don't remember what happened. I'm joking, of course. But issue 1 and 2 are on Kickstarter now. Obviously, a huge success with the first Kickstarter, and even more so success with the second one. Is that right?
We are close. I think we're only about £40 away right now from equaling the first campaign in terms of funds raised, which is amazing. I was so scared when it came to issue 2 because, you know, people jump in on an issue 1, and I totally get that. That's the way sales in comics has always worked. But that issue 2 really proves whether you have something that people are actually interested in or not, because a lot of people want that number 1 because it's the collector's item. But you know, when it comes to the number 2, that's when you really, it's the proving ground. And we got I think like 60% funded in the first day or something crazy,
Wow.
which I can't thank people enough for. And then we were fully funded by day 6. And last campaign, we weren't fully funded until I think day 20 or something like that. So
Oh, wow.
incredible. So like, and the thing about Kickstarter is like, yeah, it may be fully funded, but that's like the base level, right? That's to get the book printed, colored, and shipped, which is always the goal, right? Like just to make the product and get it out there. That's the whole reason I do this. But the stretch goals is where it gets really exciting, because then you can start bringing in new talent to do amazing covers, people that with huge established careers that would be really cool in the zombie fan base. You get to add more stories to the book. You get to add more merch and stuff. Like I love it. Like, and I love crowdfunding, and I'm really excited about it. I love studying how to get it to work, and yeah, I'm just really happy. Generally, very happy with it.
And that's great, and a lot of the stuff that's just come out alongside the comic as well, like the cards, and I mean, just the package I got from issue 1 was great with the cards and the sort of bookmark with the lovely gold foiling on it as well. Just feels like a lot of effort and love has gone into it. It just feels, and again, like as do you think that the reason the second issue's done so well is because the fact that it's an anthology? Because I guess that also means even if you missed issue 1, you can still pick up issue 2 and enjoy it.
Well, I mean, it's an anthology series. I mean, issue 2 continues the story of issue 1. You know, there's 2 stories in there that it continues. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. I know one thing is that a lot of people who missed the first campaign got really excited when I was printing and signing and doing all that stuff and putting it together. And they're like, oh, I'm going to come out and for issue 2, I wanted to be a part of it. I just missed it. So that's really cool. Like I've always been terrible with social media. And so I'm starting to like learn, like you got to post every day, you got to make content and all this stuff. Like I've never been that type of guy, and I'm slowly starting to do it. But yeah, I mean, the all the knickknacks, right, for a Kickstarter. When I first decided what I wanted to do, because what you want to do is you want to essentially create more income into the Kickstarter. So you have to start creating more merchandise, right? So that's why I do a bunch of fun variant covers, like odes to Resident Evil, odes to Todd McFarlane. Like I'm basically doing everything that, like, all right, Will Robson as an 8-year-old, what does he want? And he's like, I want Todd McFarlane and zombies and Pokemon cards. I'm like, great, that's who I'm catering to. Little 90s Will. So
then
that's
that'll apply to so many other people as well. Like I got super excited about the like Resident Evil stuff you were doing, the Resident Evil cover, obviously the Todd McFarlane cover, homage as well. That's awesome. I love that.
Well, that's great. I'm glad other people like the same things I like. You know, I'm glad it wasn't too niche of a thing. But yeah, those trading cards. By the way, I'm glad you said you liked the bookmark and specifically the gold, because that caused a major printing delay to get that gold right. Oh yeah, it caused a 3-week delay. That's why some people have only received their books in the past week because of that bloody gold.
Anything that's got like the foil spot ink, whatever you call it, on it as well. I always get excited for that sort of stuff. And I think that's what like sets it apart from other things as well. Sometimes I back a lot of Kickstarters. Sometimes you can just receive the comic, which is great, obviously, but sometimes when you receive those extra little exciting bits, and of course, when you've messaged me today saying I was the 80th backer of issue 2, which means I'm going to get something. Was it a signed print or something? Oh, I loved it. That little shot of dopamine I had.
Yeah, you're getting a speech comic sticker. You're getting a signed print, and also a shiny trading card that's part of the Outbreaks trading card game.
I mean, I knew I should have held off for however many days it's been. How many days? What day are we on now?
I think you're on day like 21 or something like that. No, 11 or something like that.
11.
No, it's whatever the date is. Day 11. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Because initially I'm like, oh no, I'm running late. But clearly it's worked out for me.
That's right.
So, I mean, where did the idea for Outbreaks come from? Was it just something that you wanted to do to step away from the stuff you were doing day to day and sort of give kick? Because am I correct in thinking that it was your first Kickstarter as well?
Yeah. So I actually started Outbreaks back in 2015, 2016, because even though my main career is drawing and writing comics over at Marvel, DC, IDW, and all that stuff, which I love doing. Writing is my true passion, and creating my own content is what I've always wanted to do. Like, I went to film school because I loved Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino and all these creators that created, wrote and directed their own stuff, and that's what I wanted to do until I graduated and I realized, oh my god, like I can never afford to make a short film, but I can afford to spend my time learning how to actually properly write and draw comics. And that's what I did. So I've always had in the back of my mind, even though at the time I was drawing, I think I was when I was working on Great Lakes Avengers over at Marvel, I was like, I need to start. It's great that I've broken in as an artist, but I need to start taking serious steps to break in as a writer, because that's what I really want to do. So I was making good money at Marvel, so I was able to hire Monica McCagney to draw the first 3 parts of Rotten Luck, which she did an incredible job on.
It really is good, yeah.
Yeah, I think her art's absolutely amazing. And that sat on my shelf for a little while because I was like, okay, I've got her to do it. And then I actually colored the first 2 issues myself originally, and they were dog shit. They were so bad. I was like, I'm ruining this book. Like, so I'm good. Those pages have been deleted of me coloring. I'm sure people would say, oh, it's not that bad, but the stuff that Cyril's doing is just so much better. So yeah, I sat on that book for a while, and then the pandemic hit. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to pay for this book to be made, because my plan was just make it fully yourself and then pitch it around to see if anybody wants to pick it up. And I did send the book to other companies, and I got responses being like, oh, well, The Walking Dead, right? Like, that's the zombie book. I'm like, okay, well, there can be more than just one zombie book. They're like, yeah, but, they did that, right? Like, they did, like, people surviving in the zombie apocalypse. I'm like, yeah, but that's not the point of this book. Like, no. I made this...
But even like the Walking Dead TV show understands anthologies, because it's going, well, here's a load of other stories set in the same universe, TV show wise, that they're doing and keep doing. So obviously it doesn't just have to be limited to that, does it?
No, you look at something like that Last of Us TV show, and although I wasn't the biggest fan of it overall in terms of the adaptation from the game, you cannot deny that episode with what's his name from Parks and Recreation, the love story.
Yeah,
is one of the greatest zombie stories I think ever, and that type of story is like exactly what I want to do with Outbreaks. Is I want to take the zombie trope, and use it as a common thread of multitude of different stories. So, in my book, I have a film noir story that's also a superhero story called Dead-Eye Dick, which is the backup story in the book, which is about a guy who loses his eye during World War II as a sniper, and then eventually he gets an experimental eye transplant and accidentally has a zombie's eye put inside his head. So he starts to crave for human flesh and gain zombie superpowers. So that's an example of not doing the classic, we are in the zombie apocalypse and we are surviving. And sure, my main story, Rotten Luck, which is about 2 guys locked in the drunk tank at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, and they have to figure out how to break out of jail or they're going to be left for dead in their cells, is more classic and more, I guess, on the lines of Shaun of the Dead. But it's not like we need to survive and it's all rough. It's we need to escape from the jail cell, and the shenanigans ensue from that. So that's the goal of the book. And in the future, I've got planned a zombie themed courtroom drama, a zombie dog story where it's like from the point of view of a dog, and I have a
non-infected dog, right?
A non-infecting dog. Yep, just trying to. It's like Homeward Bound meets The Walking Dead, basically.
Is something like this film, which like really subverts the rules of like zombie apocalypse and zombies. That must have been. Was this film like an inspiration for like some of the stuff you did, or was it just something that went into? It was a zombie film you're a fan of, so it kind of went into you sort of crafting the stories you did.
Funnily enough, I saw this movie after. I only saw this movie for the first time, I think, about a year ago. And I fell in love with it immediately because I was just like screaming at the TV, like, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. Like with my book, is like, it just completely takes something that we all know and do it in such a different way. And that's going to be my goal. And I have no plans on stopping this book. I there's a reason why on issue 1, I have it saying the only ongoing zombie anthology comic.
Yeah.
because I want to keep that word and I'm going to keep it going. Because look, I don't make any money off this book. I don't pay myself to write it. I don't pay myself to letter it. I don't pay myself to draw the parts that I draw. I just love zombies so much, and I really love this project. Like, it's a true passion project. So this is my spare time baby. Like, this is what I do in the evenings when I'm done with work, or in the mornings before I start work, because to me, there's not. What else would I be doing with my time besides watching another fucking zombie movie? So it's just great to just like, that's what I love. Like, it's just about creating. Like, I've always been someone that loves to create, and I'm so happy I finally sort of got my act together and actually putting something out there, because I'm sure there's a lot of procrastination as a creator, and you put things together and then you move on to the next project because something starts to become more interesting. So it's so nice to finally be at the point now where we're going to have 2 issues out, and it's like a real legitimate thing. I have it right here. Like, it's like, this is real. I made this. This is full of like my work that I made, and I'm like super proud of that.
Amazing. Well, it's good to have an outlet as well. I mean, it's something that obviously you do as you like your day-to-day job as well. It must be good to have something that you can sort of step away from, focus on something that's completely your own baby, essentially, and work on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like
I mean,
that.
there's certainly stories I've worked on in my career that I've been like, I could do better with this. And then I was sick of myself always saying that to myself, like, oh, I could do a better job writing the script. I'm like, well, why don't you then, mate? Why don't you go out and write a script to make a book? So I finally, gambled on myself that way.
That's good, though, isn't it? I mean, just for anybody who might not be aware of the kind of things you have worked on in the sort of in the mainstream comic industry, can we just talk a little bit about
Sure.
those and what have been your favorites? I guess what were like your dreams come true to work on in terms of characters? Because obviously you've worked on some of the real big hitters.
I'll say that my absolute top was working with Todd McFarlane when he was writing this Spawn story, and I was drawing it. And yeah, it was a dick and fart joke, Spawn story. But to be emailing with Todd, I spoke on the phone with him. I had this guy's art on my bed sheets as a kid. Like, he
That's
was
so
my
cool.
hero. And like, sitting over here, like, I keep this in my office all the time. Like, he made a toy of something that we created together. Like, and it's just like, this is
Wow.
like, I feel like I peaked a little bit, because I'm like, even though, like I said, even though it's dick and fart joke, silly Spawn, like, I created this with Tom McFarlane. Like,
Yeah.
I can die happily. Like, it's insane. And I forget about this all the time. Like, hey,
Yeah.
remember that time you actually fucking created something with Tom McFarlane? So,
That's so cool.
yeah, I'm really like,
That's so
that to
cool.
me
That's
was the
beyond.
best. But besides that, working on the first time I got to work on Spider-Man at Marvel was really great. I got to do a Spider-Man and Deadpool team up. So that was like a double whammy, because when I started at Marvel, I started drawing Star-Lord. So I drew a couple of the Guardians. And then I went off and did Great Lakes Avengers, where I was not really drawing any of the main Marvel heroes. So I didn't really feel like I was in Marvel yet.
Well, yeah, Great Lakes Avengers after that, wasn't it? Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember being in Midtown Comics in New York, and I was like, I got to find. First of all, I was trying to find Star Lord, and then I was trying to find Great Lakes Comics, Great Lakes Avengers,
Oh, nice.
just so I could say I kind of know this guy.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so that those were great characters to work on, drawing Captain America and Wolverine as well. And then I only recently, in the past couple of years, I was able to go over to DC for the first time, and I started out by working on like the DC TV stuff, like like the Flash show and all that stuff. But right after that was immediately Batman, and then the Joker, like, just like the characters you just want to draw as a kid that you filled your sketchbook with. So I'm very lucky in that way, and I love it. But as much as I love drawing Spider-Man and Batman, nothing beats writing and drawing your own book. Like, that's just the best feeling in the world for me personally. And there are people in this industry that all they want to do is draw these characters, and that's totally fine, because guess what? Those people produce the best artwork in the whole industry. Your Greg Capullos, your Stegmans, like, they are built for this industry. But I've got to do more than that. I love doing it, but I have to create my own stuff. Otherwise, I'll turn into a zombie myself.
You'll turn into a zombie. You'll turn into a Fido yourself.
I will,
Um,
yeah.
that's not so bad. I kept thinking, it wouldn't be so bad to be a zombie if I ended up being Fido.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
he's got a happy ending in the movie, right?
It is a very happy ending,
He
yeah.
gets to
Um,
end the movie smoking a fag and
smoking a fag next to a baby as well.
yeah, married to Trinity, and like I was like, this, hey, Fido lucked out.
Hey, come on,
This
man.
looks great.
Yeah. So, before we do get into the film, I will just go through a very small bit of horror news and sort of what we've been watching section as well. Um, so moving on to some horror news for the week. Apart from the fact that Outbreaks 2 is on Kickstarter, of course, of which we will put the link in the show notes for everybody who likes the sound of a zombie anthology comic to go and check it out. I highly recommend it. Um, so yeah, a couple of bits of horror news. Number one, very on brand. Twilight of the Dead, Brad Anderson directing zombie movie that began as a George A. Romero treatment, is apparently moving forward. So Brad Anderson, director of Session 9, The Machinist, is on board to direct. So yeah, shooting is expected to start later this year. And then I didn't really know all that much about this. Did you know much about this, Will?
I did know about this. Yeah. He so he had another before he died, he had another treatment he was working on, which was kind of a semi-sequel to Land of the Dead. And it was
Okay.
called Road of the Dead. And I don't know what he like. I love George A. Romero. Day of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie of all time. But the treatment for Road of the Dead is he had zombies driving cars and like it was like a bit Mad Maxy and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm doing
Come on.
weird stuff like that in Outbreaks. Is like that sounds like it would be an Outbreak story. But yeah, so that was one thing. And then before he died, he was working on Twilight of the Dead,
Mm.
and I believe it's something that's being spearheaded by his wife, if I'm correct.
Okay.
I could be wrong though, because he
So
sadly died, I believe, of I think lung cancer
mm.
a few years ago, and this was supposed to be, I think, the final sort of chapter
Mm.
in the Dead series.
So apparently it's supposed to delve into the dark nature of humanity from the perspective of the last humans on Earth who are caught between factions of the undead. Factions of the undead. I wonder what that could mean. Literally factions.
Well,
Um,
in the Romero universe, the Dead like are evolving, right? Like
mm,
that's the thing.
with Land of the Dead,
Um,
that was very clear, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and it was sort of established more in Day of the Dead with Bob the zombie, who's my favorite zombie of all time,
Yeah.
who was slowly learning to be human again. And I've always really liked that about the Romero universe. And I thought it was really funny in the Walking Dead show, like in the last season, they started doing that as well. Like it was a brand new thing. I was like, you guys are really late to the game on
Yeah.
this one. Like this is nothing new.
Zombies
Like
evolved. Hang on a minute.
yeah. So I think if they say factions, then there might be smarter zombies, I would assume.
Hmm.
I hope they don't get too smart because the next story of Outbreaks is something that kind of has to do with that. So
Oh, a super
it might
smart
squander one of my
scientist zombie.
stories.
There was kind of some of the zombies were kind of quite smart. An army of the dead. Did you see that, Zack Snyder?
I sadly did see that movie. Yes.
I sadly did see it. Yeah. I don't remember much about it. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I remember being entertained by it enough.
Well, that's great for you.
You're happy for me.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
happy for you.
Also, the George A. Romero Resident Evil
Yeah,
script. So there's a documentary being made as well. I don't know if you've seen about that.
I
Which is
do.
obviously
Yeah.
about the making of it. Did you ever read
Look,
the script? Did you
I'm
ever?
I'm a zombie nut, mate. I know, like all this zombie news, like this is great for me. Like I have no outlet to talk to this stuff to anybody else, so it's fun
Oh
chatting to
man.
it. Yeah, so Romero, when they were making Resident Evil 2, he actually directed a trailer for Resident Evil 2, the video game.
Yeah, of course.
You could see
Yeah.
it. It was for the Japanese market. And it's brilliant. It's like
Yeah.
super Romero, but super Resident Evil. And after that was made, they were like, hey, let's get this guy to make Resident Evil. And there is a video online on YouTube of someone going through the script and telling you what it would be like. And I can't remember exactly, but it definitely is not the Resident Evil we all
I
love and know.
No, it's very very different. it's been a couple of years, but somebody was doing like a comic book adaptation of it, and they were putting
Oh,
pages out on
okay.
Patreon. So like I saw a couple of those. If I remember correctly, Chris and Jill are like in a romantic relationship.
Yes, that's right.
I think Chris is like on a like the film opens with him on a farm or something like that. I mean, yeah, oh yeah, of course, very very different. But I feel like if it had that sort of George A. Romero flair, because this might be an interesting thing for us to talk about. What is your opinion of the Resident Evil movies, or even the Welcome to Raccoon City thing as well?
I think Welcome to Raccoon City gets too much flack for being the worst Resident Evil when it really isn't, because even though it is not very good, there was a lot of stuff in it that I, as a huge Resident Evil fan, just seeing Chris in the mansion and shooting zombies in like his classic outfit,
Yeah,
check mark. Like seeing the
definitely.
Raccoon City Police Department, check mark, and like Lickers, and you get Burke. Is Birkins in that, right? Or is it like something
Yeah, it's
similar to
Birkin, isn't
Birkin?
it? It's Birkin, yeah. It's weird because I recently thought I'm probably going to have to go and rewatch it because I saw it in the cinema when it came out and I haven't seen it since. And even the little screenshots I keep seeing, I'm like, oh yeah, that was in it. I suppose that is pretty cool. I think maybe I was too harsh on it as well. I
I
just
like
think,
the itchy tasty stuff. Like there's some fan like not service, but there's like some, hey, you like Resident Evil more than the average person. You're gonna get what we're talking about here. Is it
yeah,
good? No, but compare it to the Netflix Resident Evil show, my god, it's a masterpiece.
I'm so glad you said that. I say that I shouldn't have too much of a strong opinion because I gave up after 3 episodes.
Oh well, I gave up on episode 1, but
Oh, you did?
I did watch somebody review the whole thing on brutally review the whole thing on Netflix and say the whole
Okay,
story.
maybe I need
And
to find that.
I was shocked by it. Yeah, there's a guy called John Wolfe. He's a very famous YouTuber, and he did a
Yeah.
huge review of the Resident Evil show, and it goes in some very bizarre places. That's for sure.
Yeah, I remember seeing I remember seeing a clip on Twitter of somebody like dancing or something and being like, "Yes, this
Yes.
is in a Resident Evil," and I'm just like, "Oh." I mean, for me, I mean, we could probably do a whole episode about this, Will, but I think for me, the original Resident Evil movie, the 2002 Mila Jovovich, is okay, is serviceable as a zombie film. I don't always think it's great as a Resident Evil adaptation. However, I find it more enjoyable because of the sort of the one location, mostly underground lab sort of thing, and in a way, it's kind of it still includes some things that are fan service. But as soon as Mila Jovovich gets like Neo powers, I checked out. I was like, this is not correct.
Yeah, they're not good films, but I've seen them all, and I never hated any of them. Like I was never like that was the worst thing, and like they're so it's almost like I don't know. It's like pizza. Like it's like even if it's the worst pizza you've ever had, you're like it's all right still. Like I
this
don't know.
this pizza's soaked in piss.
They're fine. They're their own thing. Like and hey, when I was so hyped when I was a kid to see that first Resident Evil movie.
Yeah,
Me and
yeah.
my buddy that like would he was my Resident Evil friend. I'd go to his house and he'd play Resident Evil, and I would never play it because I was way too scared because zombies were my biggest fear. But I loved watching him play it and be like, "Go in that room. Oh, you got the key. You need to go back this way." And so we
You
played.
combine those two items. Come on.
Yeah, we played Resident Evil 1 all the way up to Veronica together until he went to a different school. But
Oh
it
wow.
was we were both like going to see the movie together. Like I was like staying over his house. We've been playing Resident Evil Code Veronica all day because I think that was out at the time, or maybe it was even the GameCube remake that came out.
Yeah, I think it was the same year. I think it was
Yes,
2002 as well. Yeah.
I remember it was like Resident Evil Zero, and like we were crapping our pants the moment all those zombies stood up on the train. And anyway,
Yeah.
I'm going into deep nostalgia here. I remember sitting down with him, seeing that movie in theaters, and like being like, it's not super Resident Evil, but like really happy to see it because I think when I was like, when did that movie come out? Did you just say 2001?
I think it's 2002. I think. I'm pretty sure.
2002. I don't even know if when I was 12 if I had seen uh, a zombie film at that point.
Oh wow! So it could have been the first. So it was Resident Evil the game would have been the first like zombie media you would have.
The first zombie media for me was the Michael Jackson music video
Oh
Thriller.
yeah, of
And
course.
that set off my
Yeah.
fear of zombies, not because they were all dancing around. It's towards the end of the music video when they're all chasing Michael
Yeah.
Jackson's date, and they all break into the abandoned house that
Oh,
she's
yeah.
in, and they start surrounding her until they get super close to the camera. That, and the way they pop out of the graves as well, that solidified my fear for zombies, because I'd always been sort of scared as ghosts as a kid, but I was like, well, ghosts kind of just stand and go there and then go away. These are going to come and eat you, right? And like, I already had a deep fear of sharks because of Jaws. I was like, oh, so these are like ghosts that are blended with sharks because they're going to eat me at the same time. This is the scariest thing.
It sounds like we were scared of like the same things growing up.
Really, well, I also had a deep fear of demonic possession as well, because I saw a double feature of Jaws and The Exorcist when I was like 5, when I was like home alone by myself. Yeah, I like snuck down to watch TV and I saw Jaws and The Exorcist and my life changed. I would say for the better. So any 5-year-olds out there, sit down and watch the scariest movies you can, because you might launch a whole creative career off of it.
All you 5-year-olds, sit down and watch Jaws and The Exorcist together.
I know that's your biggest demographic of your show is 5-year-olds. So
it is. It sure is. But yeah, zombies are super cool because they are genuinely scary. It feels like it could easily happen. I still have zombie nightmares to this day. Like
me too.
Someone to set me off, I'll be like, yeah, it's like my brain's go-to scary dream. It's always like, man, there's a load of zombies trying to kill you. Oh yeah, great. I want to experience that again. Brilliant.
Same as me, but I wake up really satisfied because I'm such a freaking nerd for zombie stuff. So
yeah, great.
So
that was beautiful.
Yeah, I woke up like, wow, that dream was frightening. I loved it.
I think I'm the same though. But so where I was so scared of zombies, that meant that I couldn't get enough of playing Resident Evil when I was a kid. Yeah. I couldn't get enough of watching zombie movies and this kind of and comics and books and everything in between.
Did you read the Resident Evil comics as well?
Oh, man, so the Resident Evil comics are something that I've like read online, but I've always tried to like get hold of them. They're always like super expensive, or
they're not great
elsewhere. They're not. No, I heard they weren't great.
But you get early Lee Bermejo art in it, which is really cool. And there's some Jim Lee covers as well, because they're made by Wildstorm, which is just crazy to me. Oh, not Wildstorm, whatever it is, right? I would think so now. I had them as a kid. I do not have them as an adult.
I never had them as a kid. I mean, I had like the novelizations of the games, and like,
oh yeah, oh my god, me too. I think I got mine at like the Scholastic Book Fair, and I was so excited.
Wow. I recently like bought a whole new batch of them because they had new covers. So I was
like, oh really? Well, I know what I'm getting for Christmas then.
Yeah, it was like a box set as well, which is pretty cool.
But I do like the old covers though. The Code Veronica cover with that blue zombie, like,
yeah, I never had all of them. So I never had all of them, so I wanted to like have the complete set. And then like the Umbrella, there was like some Chronicle books, which had like sort of just all the different monsters, all the different. Yeah, man. Well, to be fair, Will, we've been talking about doing a Resident Evil retrospective like bonus series. So if you did want to join us for that, you'd be
happily. I am full of Resident Evil information, that's for sure.
So we were thinking about doing by game, maybe like 1 and director's cut, and then maybe 2 and 3 together, and then maybe like Code Veronica. So
2 and 3 together, that's insulting. Two is the best one. It deserves its own.
It sounds pretty. Literally, the only reason I'm thinking that is because it's like it's supposed to happen at the same time, isn't it? And it's like similar areas as well. Okay, maybe just because you said that, we can separate them out.
How dare you?
I'm asking you live on the show. Okay, so I'm not going to bring up any more news because it seemed like that just opened a whole new section of the show. So I guess we talk about what we've been watching. I've only really got one thing, so it's just from the last week or so, or maybe a little bit longer, seeing as you're not always on the show, Will. Anything horror or horror adjacent that you've seen recently that you would recommend to anybody?
Something I've seen recently.
I can always go first if you're not entirely sure right now.
I will say something horror that I've enjoyed recently. Have you been watching that show called From? Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it, and my girlfriend has said to me a few times we should start watching this show, but I've not watched it yet.
It's like Lost at Halloween. That's the only way I would describe it.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's one of those shows where I'm like, all right, there's a lot of ambiguity going on here. It's probably going to amount to nothing, but there's some fun spooks along the way, and the story goes in these crazy places that it keeps it very entertaining, and there's good practical effects, which I very much appreciate. So
Oh yeah,
I'd
good.
recommend anybody watching that. And the show is about people who, the moment they drive into this town, they can never leave it. And then at night,
Ooh.
basically these people come that look like regular people with huge smiles, and if you open the door for them, then they'll turn into monsters and eat you. Like that's the premise of the show, and it sounds weird and wild, and it is, and it's a lot of fun. So I recommend that show if you want some easy watching
To be
uh
fair, yeah,
horror.
I wasn't entirely sure. I find it hard to just commit to a TV show, but that sounds pretty interesting. That sounds a bit Silent Hill. You go into a town, you can't leave.
Yeah, it is definitely Silent Hill, and there's some monsters that are very Silent Hill like. And look, is it the best thing I've ever seen? Absolutely not. But is it super easy watching and fun? Like just good
Mm.
horror as well? Yeah, of course. It's much better than a lot of movies I've seen. That's for sure.
Good. I'll be sure to check it out. Because I've heard a few good things now. So, um, that was it. Was that nothing else from recent?
I will say that as a huge Exorcist fan,
Yeah.
I'm skeptical about this new Exorcist movie. I was really hyped when the poster came out because I
Mm.
thought, wow, that looks really creepy. Like the little girl
Yeah.
in the corner in the poster, I was like, oh my God, like they've nailed it. Like that's the vibe already from one poster. And I like a lot of Blumhouse productions as well. I mean, Black Mask, I think, is a fantastic. Is it called Black Mask? No, what's it called? The movie with Ethan
Oh, Black Phone.
Black Phone. Thank you. I thought that
Yeah.
was a brilliant horror movie, and they've made
Yeah,
a
that's great.
plethora of other stuff. But then I saw the trailer for this new Exorcist, and I was like, "Oh, this does not give me Exorcist vibes at all." And now I'm a little bit worried that it will just be your run of the mill
Yeah.
possession story.
I think I feel kind of the same. A second trailer's come out, but I've not. I've decided to avoid it because I thought, right, I don't need to overdo it with trailers and screenshots and stills. I need to just okay. Is it? I think it's out in a month. Or is it October the 6th? Maybe now. I think they moved it because of there's like a Taylor Swift concert going in cinemas, and they were like, oh no, we can't
Everyone
be
back out, yeah.
who can we going on? Who can we going up against this? But yeah, I kind of feel the same. Trailer wise, I was a bit like, oh, I'm not sure. I did like the little tiny bits of the soundtrack in the trailer, and then it
Yeah. Oh,
finally get
I agree. I thought that was very well done.
yeah,
Um,
just
but yes, maybe it's just a bad trailer. You know, that's very
yeah,
possible.
that's true. That is true. The only thing I've got to discuss on what we've been watching is I watched the movie Dark Water for the first time. The Hideo Nakata directed J horror, his follow up to well, not direct follow up, but it was after Ringu. And there is an
Oh,
American
really?
remake as well. I don't know if have you seen the American remake with
I've
Jennifer?
I no, I haven't. I only watched Ringu for the first time, I believe this summer.
Yeah,
Um, so no, I never seen Dark Water, but I've definitely heard of it though.
Dark Water. Now, I watched the J horror virus documentary at Fright Fest a couple of weeks ago, which I loved. And this was one film that was kind of focused on, and I was like, oh god, I can't believe I've never seen that before because I've seen some of the visuals from it. And then when it was talking about the remake, I was like, oh, I don't think I've seen the remake either. I don't think the remake has got great reviews. However, the Japanese version is like a masterclass in supernatural storytelling. It's like
Okay,
it's just perfectly paced. It's constantly raining, which I think just adds a certain something to it.
I'm
Um,
adding it to my watch list right now.
it's just really creepy and mysterious, and like in terms of like scares, they're so it takes its time. It just does so well. I was almost like I wanted to write down the pet like the beats and the scenes just so I could work out. Okay, right. So we got this scene. There was no scare. We got this scene. Oh, that's a bit creepy. It was amazing. Like with so many obviously it's from 2002 as well. But so many supernatural horror movies. It's almost like they've got like an algorithm, haven't they? You kind of
Hmm.
know when to expect this thing. You know when to expect a big scare, a smaller scare, maybe something in the background. But
I
this was
had
just
that
it.
I had that recently. I think the movie was called like The Last Shift or something like that. Have you seen that film?
No, I don't think
Where
so.
it was this rookie police officer working at a police station that was basically shutting down,
Oh,
and there
okay.
was like a cult that murdered themselves, in the police station, and basically they're like haunting the police station.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, I'm going to give that a go. And it was just, you could tell it, everything that was going to, you knew in the moment a scare was going to happen. And the scares were just silly. And the plot had a huge, like, bad twist that it left a really bad taste in my mouth. So
Oh, man.
I know what you're saying when you like, it's so disappointing when you watch something that you like, this sounds like it's going to be really fun. And then you can just literally sit there and be like, a face is going to pop up now. And it does. And you're like, well, is this written by a computer or something? Like, please
Yeah.
avert some of my
I
expectations,
feel like
right?
you can do it like just with the audio as well. I feel like as soon as
Oh,
something
yeah.
does go quiet, I'm almost like I can count down until when something's gonna happen. And even like fake out scares, I'm like, okay, oh, don't worry, that was just a fake out scare. I'm like, well, no, because I know that there's gonna be something else behind them. So yeah, this Dark Water was really good. A really great human story at its heart as well. Um yeah, and it kind of just made me think yeah, it was pretty much it. I would say it's better than Ringu, and I probably need to watch Ringu
Really?
again. It's been a few years since I've seen Ringu. I would like to go back and watch it, and I'll probably watch
I
the US remake as well, just so I can see how they handle the same sort of stuff.
Well, the Ring scared the crap out of me as a kid. That the little girl from the Ring, because I was already afraid of The Exorcist, was just sort of another addition to that. And I
Yeah,
remember one of my friends dressed up as the Ring girl for Halloween, and like I went into the toilet in school, and she was in one of the stools, and it scared the crap out of me
she's in the
because
toilet.
they knew that it scared me, so she did it on
Oh,
purpose. But I kind of grew out of being scared of the Ring Girl. But the Exorcist Girl still
yeah,
scares me to this day.
man,
I don't know.
I am the same. They're like,
Something about it.
even when I see a screenshot of her horrible lacerated face, I'm like, oh,
I'm the 100% the same way, and I've actually grown out of pretty much all my like other fears of. I used to be a baby. I used to not be able to watch any horror movies, and they would scare the crap out of me. But now someone who writes and creates horror and has become a horror nut, like I've completely grown out of being afraid of things. But
mm,
except for the little girl's face from The Exorcist, it's just I see those pictures, and it's two pictures in specific. One's a super close up of her smiling, and the other one is when she has the bright white eyes when she's floating.
yeah,
Those two
that's scary as
still
well.
frighten me today. And yeah, but anyway, in terms of the Ring, I had never seen Ringu, and I was like, I'm gonna sit down and watch it. And I was a bit like, I've seen this movie already, so I feel like it wasn't the most appropriate time for me to watch it. Like I appreciated it for what it was because it was creating something which must have been fresh at the time. But that the Ring movie was so popular, it changed
Yeah.
horror films forever. That it was
Yeah.
like not watching anything new when seeing it.
There's a lot of similar sort of visual themes in Dark Water. Obviously, water being one of them. Hair, obviously that's very prevalent in Ringu as well. And then like the mystery and the tragedy of like a girl or a spirit of a girl. But yeah, it's just handled in a completely different way. It's almost like the presence isn't always like an evil presence, if that makes sense. It's still creepy, it's still mysterious, it's still scary, but the presence isn't particularly evil. There's like a mystery at its center, and just the central roles as well, like a mother and daughter, are really well done.
And
So
look,
yeah.
I wholeheartedly mean this. A lot of people say, "Oh, check that out." I actually will check that one out. So I'm looking
Well,
forward to it.
I certainly hope you enjoy it. Well, I'd hate it if you didn't. But
If I didn't, then I'll never come on this podcast again, and that'll be
that's
it.
fine. That's fine. And you could I mean, I'd hate that, but if you got to do what you got to do, right? Even if we do a Resident Evil retrospective, sorry, but
No,
not after the
not
last
interested.
recommendation. I
No,
can't take you
exactly.
seriously, mate.
The guy
Um,
wants to put Resident Evil 2 and 3 in the same podcast. Fuck off.
they're basically the same, aren't they? Basically the same game. I don't know which
Oh,
one's better.
why does that actually upset me?
I'm joking. I'm joking. Um, it was never supposed to be number three either, was it? It was supposed to just be a like a spin-off or something, wasn't it? Wasn't it supposed to just be like
Resident Evil 3?
yeah? And then they just
Resident Evil
said
3 was supposed to be Code Veronica, and Resident Evil
yeah,
3, the banner, was supposed to be what Code Veronica was. Because when you look at that game, it's weird. Like, why is it
yeah,
Resident Evil 3 when it's additionally like DLC story? When the other one is supposed to be a spin-off, when really is the continuation of the story with Chris Redfield and Claire
yeah.
Redfield and stuff. So
Interesting. Well, that is one of many things we can discuss. Before that, of course, we have to discuss the film of the week, which was suggested by you. Because I think at this point, 301 episodes into the podcast, I was trying to tot it up recently. We've covered a lot of zombie movies, a lot. I think it's like, well, I want to say like 20, possibly. So yeah, I guess there weren't many places left to go except for a film like this, which is a very sort of like off the beaten track type of zombie movie, but one that I'm pretty sure I'd seen before, but I'm glad we can talk about something like this because it's a very unique film. So the film we're talking about is Fido, which is a 2006 Canadian zombie comedy film directed by Andrew Currie and written by Robert Chomiak. It was produced. Wait, no, not that bit. Where am I looking? So the basic plot is it's set in. Is it actually 1950s or is it like some sort of weird alternative? Oh well, it is an alternative 1950s, but yeah, set in the 1950s.
I think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to say instead of actual World War II, there was a zombie war instead, right? Like I think that's what they're saying because they show the footage of like all the soldiers going and fighting the battle in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
and they even well, actually no, I guess it must have happened earlier because it's quite 50s looking. But they say to the father like, "Oh, you must have been 10 when it happened," and he's clearly like a 40-year-old man now,
yeah.
so it must have happened like 30 years ago. Yeah,
Or is it?
you
Is
know
it
what?
what?
It doesn't even matter. It's just in a 50s setting, and I love
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't matter. And again, we've mentioned Fallout already. Maybe it's something where it
Yeah,
happened during the 50s, and now we're in this perpetual 1950s world where nothing's really changing because there's some sort of zombie apocalypse. So space radiation turns the dead into zombies, and Zomcon fights zombies and finds a way to pacify and use them on preteen Timmy's 1950s suburban street. They all have a zombie doing menial chores, and Timmy's zombie becomes his pet and friend named Fido, played by Billy Connolly. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it was Billy Connolly. When I know it's Billy Connolly, I'm like, well, of course it's Billy Connolly. But before that, I was like, I mean, clearly it's the hair, the beard, and the fact he doesn't speak.
yeah.
So all
It's
of the
isn't it? It's such a weird choice. Like but I love it. I mean, he's great in the movie. Like his responses to stuff, and I love the look that he has as he's just like going around and doing things, and when
yeah,
people
he's
talk to him, he just goes like he's
yeah,
great.
yeah. It's almost like he's like it's like an understanding sort of laughy smile. Like, oh yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Also,
Yeah. It's
even
like
like his
someone that's
pet.
really, really stoned, right? Like it's like a guy that's done weed for the first time and eaten like 20 edibles because he thought, oh, I eat the whole bag. And then like people are talking to like when he goes and does a task, the fact that his eyes like focus so hard when he goes to do the task and the delayed laugh. Yeah,
I
he's just
think
a big
it's just a great performance because you genuinely feel like bad for him. Like even when he's getting like zapped and like his pained face, it feels like so genuine. You're like, oh no, and yeah, he seems to deliver so many emotions, and we really understand like how he feels in scenes when he got no dialogue and he's just acting with his eyes. It's got 6.7 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes 72%, critics score 72%, audience score 4.0 on Letterboxd, and I got some choice reviews for you here. Eyeball Chambers says Pleasantville with zombies, 4 stars.
absolutely.
Kenilco, yeah, definitely. Kenilco says Fido is a kinder, gentler zombie comedy, less gore, although not gore free, with a soft spot on its heart, a softer spot on its heart than one might expect. 3 stars. VHS Creep says I want a pet zombie. 3.5 stars. I did keep thinking that. Did you think this? I kept thinking, would I? I mean, I
Never.
don't think I could. No. Would I?
Never.
Could I? How would I feel if somebody else had a pet zombie?
I am
Um.
the same way as the father in this movie. Being, you know,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
as
yeah.
so afraid. Well, I'm not a horrible man like he is, but afraid of zombies. Like I would, if I came home and my wife was like, "Oh, we have a pet zombie," I'm like, "Great, you just brought my biggest fear, always threatening me with potential death in the corner. Thank
Just
you
get a
for that."
shark in the swimming pool next. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's a friendly shark. Well, I love animals, so I'd probably like, "Oh, is it?" Like
Is
I want
it?
to go meet this friendly
Is he
shark.
all right?
Yeah, I probably would
Um.
fall in love with that shark. So, but I don't think
The
I'd fall in
last.
love with a zombie.
And the last review for Jesse Williams says, "Lovely little zomedy is basically Edward Scissorhands with a zombie."
Yeah, well, anything to do with the 50s suburban lifestyle, you can compare it to. But I think you nailed on the head when you said fallout, because I think that's the true feeling of this film, because you have the everything's fine vibe to
Yeah.
it of it's the 1950s and everything is fine, except behind the curtain there is some mysterious stuff going on, and there's true darkness in that world that everyone is really trying to ignore. And like the what are they called? The Zomcon? Is that the name of the company?
Zomcon, like the big company, yeah, the big.
That feels very much like the vaults type
Yeah.
stuff, and and that was the immediate vibe I got from it as well. I just really look. There's some problems in this film where the second act is really slow, and it kind of really slows down the film for a while. I think the first act of the film is tremendous. The introduction to the universe, I'm in from the get-go, especially when like you see the kids shooting the guns and everything. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. Sorry, side note, you got a Chicago Bulls top on them?
Yeah, sure
I'm
I
a
did.
big Bulls fan myself.
Oh, you are? I'm afraid this is just
a fashion choice.
This is just a fashion choice. It was like, what's that? I mean, big Bulls fan in like the 90s, and I love The Last Dance as well. Really enjoyed that. But
okay, well, that's enough to be able to wear a shirt
that's
and
fine.
not say it's a fashion choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I got distracted.
Anything sleeveless when I'm in a shop, I'm like, oh yeah, I love that.
Right,
I'm always running hot. That's why.
Good choice. Yeah, so I think the first act is strong. I mean, I have to admit, I have a huge crush on the actress that plays Trinity in this film, because I think she's just stunningly gorgeous in this movie. And I've always had like a weird thing for like the 50s housewife aesthetic for some, and I've got like, I'm not someone that has like, I had like one thing and like that's what I'm into. I have like a million things, and that's always been a strong one for me, because I like, for instance, I love Christina Hendricks and Mad Men and stuff like that.
Dude.
And I love the Mad Men aesthetic. So I am just absolutely infatuated with her in this movie.
How would you feel if you got
gorgeous.
home from work? How would you feel if you got home from work and Carrie Ann Moss was standing there giving you a
martini,
triple what they call triple olived martini ready to go?
I think I would have died and gone to heaven, to be honest.
Do
but
you know the bit where she walks out with like 3 glasses of lemonade? That slow-mo shot.
Yes, yeah, it's incredible. And she's brilliant in this movie. And you know what I noticed as well, like seeing her with a bit of long, we're all used to her with the Trinity short hair, but seeing her with longer hair, I was like, man, she would have made a terrific Wonder Woman, because she's quite like built, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think there's some shots in here. There's a scene when she's towards the end where she's at a meeting, like, and she's sitting down with the wife of the Zomcon guy. And when they're talking to each other, it's like, wow, like she's giving off like Wonder Woman vibes here. So I think that was a missed opportunity there.
Got the action chops as well, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I thought she would have been good there. But no, she's brilliant in the film. I mean, her aspirations in the film are a bit bizarre, but she falls in love with a zombie essentially, which is quite fun, and it's very innocent, really.
Yeah, I mean, but it's built from so many different things, isn't it? She doesn't feel like her husband really notices her that much. She mentions loads of times that he wouldn't even notice. You don't even notice that I'm pregnant. He doesn't even notice that Fido's going to be in his suit. So yeah, clearly maybe it's just that longing gaze that Fido gives her that
I don't know, but she chose the wrong husband. I mean, that guy is absolutely, he's a wet blanket. He's useless, isn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't really care about his kid either. Like, seems to only care about golf and then actually dying. So this funeral stuff and paying for it, right? The only problem I have with this is like, why can't you just get cremated, mate? But are they just saying that the society, because he said at one point, like, oh, maybe he got caught doing an illegal funeral, because apparently it's illegal to have funerals in the society. So that made me think, like, oh, is it like these corporations are like trying to profit off of something that they know is now more of a common human condition, which is having to bury your dead? And so they're like, oh, well, if you want that done the proper way, you have to go through us, or potentially it's illegal. I'm not quite sure if that was the intention, but when it was like, oh, I'm spending all this money for us to have these proper burials where our heads are removed from our bodies and buried separately. I was like, is that a religious thing? Because otherwise, just burn the bodies, right? Or everyone shotguns the head of the body off at the end, or just chops the head off and then buries it. Like,
or just puts a little sharp stick into the brain. That's they were literally showing that.
Absolutely, yeah.
It establishes some interesting rules, though. Obviously, it establishes those kind of rules. Also, there are companies out there that have made some sort of alarm heart monitor thing for elderly people, so when they die.
Brilliant.
Because again, another world where zombies, where everybody turns into a zombie. Again, similar to The Walking Dead, where if you turn into a zombie, it's obviously airborne. This space dust, what is it like?
Yeah, something from like a meteor or something. But that was the fun thing about this movie, and I wish there was more antics like that. I loved that advert of the guy being like, "The elderly, they look harmless, but they're deadly," or whatever he says.
Well, yeah,
and I love like Grandpa,
mentioned...
Grandpa, and you see like the zombie granddad. That's what the charm of this film really shines through in those little scenes, and I wish there was more of that.
I do enjoy that sort of undercut, that subplot as well, where the granddad had died and had to be killed by Dylan Baker's character, and now he's kind of like traumatized by that and kind of like holding everybody responsible for it in a way, isn't he? He almost like doesn't want the boy Timmy to have like a good happy upbringing, because he's almost like, well, I had to kill my dad.
And I'm sorry, I always forget her name, but the actress that played Trinity, Carrie Ann Moss. Thank you.
A double barrel name, isn't it?
Yeah, Carrie Ann Moss. She has a great line in this film towards that, where she says something along the lines of like, just because you're like you had to kill your father doesn't mean that we all have to suffer because of it. And I was like, damn. I was like, that's so true.
True, but like generational trauma as well. Like for a film like this, to just like broach the subject of that and kind of like explore it in a way as well, it's just interesting. I think it just adds to that world building. I think the world building's really good. The characters are really good. I think it's got a really good cast as well. So obviously Dylan Baker's great. Even Tim Blake Nelson as the neighbor, Mr.
Which is also great. Theophilus. Like, of course, the first thing that people would do when they have zombie pets is, fetishize it and all this stuff. Like, it's exactly, that's human nature. Like, it's like, do you know what you said is true? This movie's extremely good at world building. And when it's over, I'm like, I don't want this world to end. I think they could remake Fido as a television show now and sort of give this universe like room to breathe and explore some really fun themes with it, because I love this universe. I think it's a lot of fun.
Got a lot of potential, definitely. And Mr. Theophilus, he obviously says that a young lady had a brain aneurysm and they slapped the color on her before she even hit the ground. So does it stop them decomposing as well somehow?
I mean, I think that's something they're like, we don't have to like fully explain this, right? Because if everyone has pet zombies, they would stink, right? Like everyone's house would stink.
Yes, I wasn't sure but then I guess they would. If that was the case, they probably would have like explained why that worked in a way. Obviously, you've got to suspend your disbelief for some areas of it, but I don't think it matters so much. You're not like, well, hang on a minute, why weren't they decomposing? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would have done is potentially remove their teeth or sew their mouths shut and make sure remove their fingernails. So if their collar ever is faulty, all they can really do is pin you down. They can't actually turn you into a zombie or murder you.
That's a great point. A bit like Michonne.
But then you don't get a fun movie. Like those type of results are like, well, then we don't get the movie, you dick. So just don't think about it.
Maybe you had one person who did it, one person who did it, and they're like, oh, okay. Why have you done that? Oh, it's because of this. Because maybe establish that, but then also establish the fact that everybody else is so oblivious to the fact of that because they've got this like idyllic. Everyone is still like trying to keep up appearances, and that's one thing that Carrie Ann Moss's character is very keen on doing. That's the reason they get Fido in the first place, is because everyone else has got a zombie, someone else has got 6, and we haven't got one.
I love that's great. It's really good storytelling, and I very much enjoyed that. I love anything to do in like the what post World War II world, what everyone aspired. The like anything in this world is the American dream, right? Like it's like the family, the kid, you got the car, the house, like the dog in the yard, or in this case, the zombie in the yard. Like it's an aesthetic that I truly, truly love, and stories in it. That's why I've always loved Fallout. As someone else said, Pleasantville is another great sort of
Yeah.
skewed version of like the 50s lifestyle. So having zombies in it, I mean, that's great. And yeah, this movie is so true to what I'm trying to do with my own book. Like just taking something like zombies, but presenting it to you in a really fun and new way. Because I just think there's so much potential with zombies. They're more than just your general outbreak story, right? Of just zombies running around and being zombies and wanting to eat. Like, I think the true reason why I made the book was I was watching a show, Black Mirror, and I was like, wow, like this show is incredible. Look at all these different stories that all revolve around technology that are so different from each other. And I was like, I could do the same thing with zombies. I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. So yeah, I love this movie. And like, is it the greatest zombie movie? No. Does it have some pacing issues? Absolutely. But it's fun as hell. And I recommend anybody that truly loves zombies to check it out.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking as well, actually, Will, was that it kind of elaborates on an idea that Shaun of the Dead kind of puts forward at the very
Yes,
end
it
of the
does.
film as well, doesn't it? Which is like humans and zombies can exist. We can essentially go back to normal, but zombies will exist doing meaning like putting the trolleys back in the
I
supermarkets.
I would like to hear if potentially this story was made from seeing that scene at the end of the film with
Yeah.
the zombies doing the trolleys and the checking at the counter. And they were like, I think there's a bit more there to explore. Potentially, or it could just be a coincidence. Maybe the script was, floating around for 7 or 10 years before that. I don't know, but it was, the vibe of the last 5 minutes of Shaun of the Dead is this movie, like the whole film.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I mean, I guess we should talk about the plot. We don't have to go into major detail, but as we've already mentioned, obviously this takes place in a 50s-esque alternate universe, radiation from space, turn people into zombies. Then there were zombie wars where humanity battled zombies, and we get all of this in like sort of archive footage, essentially, don't we? Prevented a zombie apocalypse. Humanity is the ultimate victor, but the radiation still plagues everybody because as soon as you die, you turn into the undead. So there's a constant train, sort of zombies coming along. The radiation still plagues them. So unless the body is disposed of by decapitation or cremation, everyone should be cremated then. Communities basically lived in like fenced off communities areas where Zomcon this company have provided collars with remote controls to control their hunger for flesh, to use them as menial task servants. So what have we got? People helping. We've got like a milkman zombie or like a milkman assistant,
Yeah.
paperboy zombie, somebody helping a woman with her groceries to the car. Just like people, is it kind of a combination between like a butler and a pet?
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole moving company as well, and then there's like ones that are just so unnecessary, like opening the door for the children as they leave school, waving at the "Welcome to our
Yeah.
town" sign.
In
Like,
terms of the dangers of like,
yeah,
because it never ever suggests like that. Oh, it's no one's ever been killed by a zombie for Zomcon. Like, oh, they could have easily suggested that. It's kind of always suggesting that like things have gone wrong and they will go wrong. So like having
yeah,
one open the door at the school.
yeah, they have a whole cleanup crew, right? Like we see the cleanup crew in action. And again, more to the lore and world building. As the movie goes on, you find out, oh, the whole world isn't safe. There's still like what they call the wild zone, which is just the ungated off communities. Because he even says like, oh, we have giant walls up. So like this community has clearly established itself, but doesn't mean that the world has been saved because there's still tons of zombies out there. So again, this movie constantly makes me asking for more. Like, I want to know more about this wild zone. I want to know more about the establishing of how this society turned into this, how everyone agreed to these rules of there's no prisons, right? If you break the law, you just get put in the wild zone. I'm like, that's interesting. I love that.
It is interesting, and it kind of makes you think, right, in terms of government, like, does that still exist? Are these areas like really, are these sectioned off areas like really isolated in a way?
Exactly. Yeah, and like, I mean, there was no police, there's no government at all. The only sort of official in it was Zomcom themselves, and the other ones coming around and being an authoritative figure was them. So yeah, there's so much to explore, and the best thing about societies like that, when they are in like Pleasantville and it's everything's happy and sunshine, everyone's hiding what they're truly thinking. It just makes it even better. Like I love there's such a great duality and juxtaposition between like a housewife holding up like a picture of lemonade, but then knowing that miles away someone just got kicked out into
Yeah.
over the wall and is now surrounded it by zombies and needs to like find wildlife
There's a lot of
to
like
survive.
it kind of represents the 1950s or like this sort of era in a way as well, where like any bad stuff kind of gets ignored, brushed under the carpet. Everyone's like, well, we don't want to talk about that. We just want to talk about the nice, idyllic, lovely sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. We don't really
Quite
want to talk
quite British mentality, that I'd say.
about a very British mentality, which is interesting, I think. But yeah, and maybe it's not even the 1950s at all. Maybe outside in the wild zones, it's 2006.
Yeah.
A bit like The Village, where everyone just decided to live in the past, because it was better. It's better than one it apparently.
That sounds great. I mean, if that's extra lore that I'm going to say is true now, because I
Yeah.
think that's awesome.
Wow. Okay. So we're introduced to these characters initially, and it's in the town of Willard. Helen Robinson, played by Carrie Ann Moss. Her husband Dylan Baker is Bill, and then obviously their son Timmy. And then they buy a zombie played by Billy Connolly to essentially do menial tasks for them, be their butler. But Bill is terrified of zombies. He's got a serious zombie phobia. But Carrie Ann Moss, Helen is trying to just brush over that because she's like, we need to keep up appearances. We need a zombie of our own. Everyone else has got one. Some have got 6. And clearly Bill is using his he uses the remote to like zap Fido over and over again to kind of like establish dominance in a way. And then we find out about the fact that he had to kill his own father, who became a zombie and tried to eat him. And then obviously there's an interesting story with Timmy, and he's being bullied at school.
Yeah, I love all that. The little scouts, and they're like zombie scouts. I love that.
Little zombie scouts, and then the guy from Zomcon goes into the school as well. Jonathan Bottoms, played by Henry, does he? Played by Henry Cerny. I recognize this guy from some stuff. What
I know. What has he been in? Because I recognize him too, and I thought he was great in this as well.
I know. I've seen him in. He's in modern. He's in the most recent Mission Impossible movie. Have you seen that? He's like the head of the whoever Tom Cruise works for. I can't remember what they're called. He's in Scream 6 as a doctor. I don't know, but this might be what I recognize him from. Ready or Not. I think he might be the dad of the family.
Okay.
In that, I'm pretty sure. But yeah.
But he's great in this. And I love that scene of him talking to the school kids and they're asking all the questions. That felt super Fallout as well, especially cutting to all the kids then having like their target practice and
with loaded guns.
Yeah.
With loaded guns. And obviously one of the bullies like threatens to shoot Timmy. And don't worry, it's got no bullets in it. And then realizes, yes, it did. All that stuff was great. Obviously, like the sort of corporate, the company man, sort of trying to drum in the rule, and almost like trying to raise new generations of people who are going to follow his rules, essentially. And then, even one of the kids says how much he loves Zomcon as well. But yeah, even in these initial scenes, it establishes like a lot of rules, and also like some of we sort of understand why Timmy befriends Fido, sort of like it's a weird combination, isn't it? It's like he's a friend, a pet, but also like a father figure for him, because obviously he's got a difficult relationship with his dad as well.
No, that's very true. Yeah, and there's some, the plot in this that his collar breaks, but he still like loves the family. I don't think it's super necessary. I think it'd be darker if that didn't happen, and more fun. So that's not fully necessary to me, but I do like that he essentially gets off the leash and causes mayhem. And I love that the cleanup, like all those scenes of like the people having picnics and getting eaten by zombies. And I also think that the zombies in this movie look great. Like in terms of fresh zombies, like I love the contact lenses they have and like their subtle coloring. I love that Fido is that bluish hue, just like Bub from Day of the Dead. I love a blue zombie. There's not enough blue zombies
Helps.
in zombie content. It's why in all of Outbreaks, I always make sure at least one of the zombies is blue,
Yeah.
just because I find the blue zombie scary. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Even that picture you have up right now, Fido, over your shoulder, I keep catching it in the corner of my eye. Like,
I think like
that's
it
freaking me
is.
out a little bit.
It is genuinely like the fact, despite the fact it is a comedy, it is genuinely skill. Like the sound design, like the noises of the zombies, like all the performances of the zombies are good.
Mm,
And the gore, like people get their throats torn out, people get arms ripped off.
yeah.
It's legit, and I think like the threat of it is definitely still there. Like as soon as the collar gets switched off, I'm always like, oh shit, what's going to happen? Oh no.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting, but then also we get some interesting world building with Mr. Theopolis as well, who used to work for the company, and now he's kind of as their next door neighbor. He's kind of like he helps out Timmy a couple of times with kind of giving him various tips on the collar and stuff like that, because obviously he's he's kind of making the most of knowing all these things. The fact he's got Tammy on, which is his zombie. Saying pet sounds very, very.
This is like the zombie equivalent of a mail order bride, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it is.
really cringy and gross, but like
It's
there's always
cringy,
that
but
one. There's always that one person that it's like, yep, that's exactly what would happen with
yes.
somebody.
And you think, well, he's making the most of it, isn't he? He's making the most of a world gone to shit. Uh, but I kind of liked it because even though, yeah, it's a bit seedy and it's a bit like it's very suggestive. We don't, we're making up our own mind about what the details of this relationship are, how far it goes.
Well, he does
However,
kiss her at one point. I
he
mean, it's
kisses
pretty
her at one
established
point,
there.
but I think that was a moment where he kind of thought, perhaps, yeah. But even that, he treats her better than Bill treats Helen, and Helen even notices that. Like,
Yeah, that's true. Which
which
is
is,
terrible.
yeah,
I mean, when you think about it, it is extremely messed up because what are the human rights laws when it comes to the undead? Because
I kind of thought,
to be
oh,
with him is not really her choice, is it? So
that's
there's
true.
some huge problematic stuff like that could potentially arise
I
from
kind
that.
of imagined that more of that was going to come into it. I imagined some sort of subplot where we were saying, shouldn't Fido have his own, be able to make his own choices, etc., etc. And maybe that could have been something just that was explored in a sequel, or like a mini series. If it became a mini
Yeah,
series, that could
I
be
agree.
something that there's some people out there who say, oh, we shouldn't be keeping them at all. Yeah, but that's the thing. It suggests, it conjures all these ideas, which I think is really good for a film like this. I think when you watch the movie and you're like, okay, I'm done from the start to finish. There we go. It's not created anything else in my head. The fact that it makes me think of these what ifs and these extra little narrative threads as well, I think is really cool.
I agree.
So yeah, Fido pretty much gets into trouble fairly quickly when he's playing catch with Timmy, and his collar malfunctions when I mean, in a way, it's their own fault, isn't it? This neighbor, I can't remember what her name is. Is it
Mrs. Henderson or something like
Yeah,
that?
Mrs. Henderson, that's right. I mean, and she's not very nice anyway. We've seen her already, like having a go at
No,
shouting at Timmy for leaving his bike on his own lawn.
she's so vile, and I love it. Yeah, like my wife was vaguely watching it in the background as she was cooking, and she was like, "Who is this woman?" Like the gall of her to say, like, while like it's his lawn, like he can do what he
Yeah,
wants with the
I'll do what I want,
bicycle.
for God's
My
sake.
favorite though is she's sitting there with her little binoculars, and she's like looking at it, she's like, disgusting. Like put a
Yeah,
shirt
yeah.
on or something like that. I love that. Like just such a bitter old woman.
A
It's
bitter old
totally
woman.
fine. Like a good choice of characters for us all to be happy when Fido rips her arm off.
Yeah. So, yeah, so she basically smashes her head into the ground over and over again with a little walker thing. His collar malfunctions, and she gets up and kills him. Sorry, he gets up and kills her. Timmy discovers it happening, and then they just go away for a bit. So she doesn't turn until like the night time, because we see her standing up against a full moon, don't we?
I love
So,
that shot. There's some
oh
cool
yes, great.
cinematic silhouette choices in this movie of like it is very over the top. This moon is extremely zoomed in, like it's practically the whole screen. But her
Yeah.
getting up and making the zombie noises. And I have to say, one of the things that I really like about this movie is the score. Like it really It's a
Yeah.
fantastic score and really kind of gives it almost like an Elfman vibe, especially like when people were saying like Edward Scissorhands, like there's some of that in here, especially in the score. And one of my favorite shots in this is when Timmy goes back to deal with Mrs. Henderson and he ends up killing her with the spade. He's in complete silhouette as he beats her to death
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
woods, and I think it's a beautiful shot, like very comic booky in a sense.
Mm. And I was kind of thinking about the score in this initial moment as well, especially when he basically apologizes for killing her, obviously after he's killed her, and says you weren't very nice, but I'm sorry you had to go like that. See you later. So there are like a few like wild zombies based on a few things. It's weird that they can like kind of wander around and not get noticed straight away. The fact that we see at one
I
point.
think that would be true, right? Like you're so
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
people just wandering around. But I love that everyone, like mandatory, everyone sort of carries a gun on them. But
yeah.
not everyone has sort of been keeping up with their target practice. So a lot of people are out of practice with it. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Mr.
good fun.
Theopolis, especially. We see a moment where he tries to kill a zombie and he misses about 3 times. Then he thinks he shot the zombie, but no, it was one of the little scout girls, wasn't it?
Yeah, which her character went nowhere. They established it early on that like,
Yeah.
oh, this is going to be Timmy's crush, right? Because
Yes.
he sees her like literally chopping a zombie's head off with bullets, which I love. Like even though it's not a real zombie, it's like a target, but she like
Yeah.
full on chops the head off with bullets. And she gets established on early on, being like, "Oh, I think that my mom and your mom said we should be friends," and Timmy's all nervous around her. So I don't know if they had something more written there where she was going to be more of an important role because
Yeah.
she kind of disappears. She kills that zombie, and then she just comes back at the end with her father on a leash, and that's really
Yeah,
it.
because I was confused about how I was supposed to feel about her. Because initially I was like, okay, is she going to be like he's got a crush on her. Is she going to be his
Yeah.
friend? But then she said a couple of things where I was like, oh, maybe she's a enemy of his in some way. Because she said she was going to like tell her dad. But then when he was off his lead, Fido, she like put the lead on him to sort of almost like, um, yeah, I think it's because I misheard it as well. I misheard when he said we should be friends. I thought she said we shouldn't be friends, which is maybe why I established the fact that I'm not supposed to like this character. But no,
Oh, unless I misheard it, I'm not sure.
no, I think it was me. Uh, um, so yeah, that was all pretty interesting. There's a minor zombie outbreak as well with a dog walker gets attacked by Mrs. Henderson.
Which
The
I thought
dog.
was Meatloaf for a second. Did you? I was looking at the actor. I was like, is that fucking Meatloaf? Like, is he in this movie?
When Meatloaf has got short hair, like he just looks like a completely different person, doesn't he? I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus. I don't know actually. I don't. I
I'm like,
don't
look,
think.
if Billy Connolly could be the main zombie, anybody could
Yeah,
pop up in this
I agree
movie.
with you there. I agree with you. I wouldn't have been surprised if anyone turned up. Um. So yeah, that small outbreak sort of gets quelled by the Zomcon security forces just shooting everybody. And then those two little bully kids. Obviously, we didn't establish this before, but they did try to attack Timmy and Fido saved him, threw one of them to the ground, like broke his arm or
Yeah.
something. I kind of like that, the fact that he's not completely docile, he still like protects Timmy. This is with the collar on as well. So that was interesting. But then they did both the bullies come back into the story when they shoot like a Zomcom officer. Is that right?
Yeah, in
They
the
shoot.
leg by accident.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's like some sort of suspected that it was them who shot the missing neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, but then they hatch a plan essentially to put the blame on Fido. I say put the blame on Fido. It was Fido, but I don't
Yeah.
think they know that at this stage, do they? Is this where the
And
second act, where you were a bit
yeah.
more like,
Yeah, it is around. It's before because I do enjoy the scene when they go to the cabin on the hill and
yeah,
they tie Timmy up because I love the zombie kid coming towards him. Like that's a terrifying scenario for me. I'm tied to a tree and a zombie's coming to eat me. You
yeah,
can't defend yourself like unless
no,
you headbutt or something like that. So I really enjoy that. It was just the build up towards that. It just felt for me a bit slow. It was like at a point when he was like washing off Fido in the garage, and like they were trying to just establish a few other things. Like I still don't think that the father was the best executed. I think that actor is amazing. I always enjoy everything he does, and I love his character. But some of his choices of responding to people didn't feel exactly natural to me. And like the fact that his whole life he was like, I just care about golf, was like not really like I'm like there's got to be more like to just you being, upset that you had to murder your father and having a fear of zombies.
What I kind of got with him. Sorry, Will. What
No, go ahead.
What I kind of got with him is that he was like in denial that everything was happening. He was kind of like focused entirely on just living this idyllic lifestyle that he was.
But why does he have to ignore his wife because of that,
it was almost like because he was doing that. That was why he was. Yeah. But great actor Dylan Baker, obviously. Dr. Kurt Connors in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Yes,
movies.
that's true.
Never got to become the Lizard, which is a huge shame. But yeah, he's great, and well, I think he's great in a very very conflicted sort of role, isn't it? But yeah, going back to the bit where the bullies tie him and Fido to a tree, and they're gonna they deactivate his collar, and they're gonna get Fido to attack Timmy, and then like shoot Fido, and then be like, we saved him.
Yeah,
but it goes tits up pretty much immediately.
Big time.
Shoot Fido through the chest, and then it's really dark, don't it? The fact that it just kills the other brother, like the bullet goes straight through him and kills him. He's like, you made me kill my brother.
Yeah, you made me kill my brother. I love that. Yeah,
and then he does get eaten off screen, like in a cabin, doesn't he?
He does, yes. And I really like that. And I like that, like if Fido has to put rocks down to stop the kid from busting through as a zombie. And I was like, why is that? Like, why is again like just destroying the head not the solution here, right? Like why did you have to block off the door to so instead of destroying the kid's brain? And I get it because it leads to the scene of him with the chance that he's going to be eaten by the child. But maybe they should have made Fido leave without doing that, and that was the problem there. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it just again, it seems to ignore certain things that would be obvious.
I'm nitpicking though, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's just fine to do that. So we think Fido's probably going to eat Timmy, but when he comes up to him, he unties him. Wait, is that? No, he can't untie him, can he? He tries to untie him, can't do it. So he's like, go and get help. And obviously, this is like a bit of a parody of Lassie.
Yeah, but it's funny though.
Yeah,
like where's Timmy? It would be funny if he was actually in a well.
Yeah, it would. So he goes and gets Helen. Goes and gets the mum, and then she drives back, and she's trying to get directions from him. Is it around here somewhere? Where is it? And he's like, but it's hard enough to give directions at the best of times, let alone when you can't talk and you're a zombie. And yeah, the zombie kid manages to force his way out of the cabin, coming towards Timmy, gonna kill him. But right at the last minute, Helen arrives, knocks him over, flattens him in the car, and then they cover their tracks. They put the bully bodies. They put the I can't even say that. The bully bodies
bully bodies in the bush.
Put the bully bodies in the bush, and then they set fire to it to cover their tracks. And again, this is another thing. Like in any other film, they could have easily gone. The mum is as soon as she finds out, she's going to be angry or disappointed or whatever. But no, she's just as willing as Timmy to like protect Fido essentially.
Yeah.
And the relationship between Fido and Helen sort of develops in a different way. She says,
well, because on the drive there, she notices that his collar is off, and she doesn't. He's not attacking.
That's right.
Which I think is her first spark of like, oh, there could be something between them in the future.
She says, why aren't you going to kill me? And he's like, yeah, so that's interesting. Obviously, again, a couple of nice little details they establish. They establish how he died, how Fido died, and it was from just like a chest incision. It's a heart attack. That's right, a heart attack, and we established that he was a smoker.
Yeah, I love that.
Poker. Because he's just like reaching for the cigarette, just one more.
And he's loving that fag when he's been given it. He's just puffing away in it, and the moment it's taken away from him, he's like, ah! And I'm like, I get it. I get it.
I get it. so obviously we get that, and then yeah, when he has a lovely bit of lemonade as well, it's like, well, zombies don't need to drink. No, they don't need to, but doesn't matter. He's just enjoying it, having a lovely taste.
He's living unliving his best life.
Unliving his best life.
Living dead his best life.
Yeah. And that is when Helen says something like, "You beautiful zombie man," or something like that. She says to him because obviously he helped save Timmy. Yeah, which is nice. They essentially like try and forget about the whole thing, but then I think Mrs. Henderson's body gets discovered, and then the murder is like immediately traced back to Fido. I can't remember exactly how they trace it back to him.
I think it's because the security chief of Zomcon has his suspicions that Timmy's involved because he finds the bloodied baseball. So although the murder is pinned on the two bullies, he knows sort of the truth. So that's why he takes Fido away from them.
Yeah.
And he even says to them, like, "You're lucky I'm just doing that."
I feel like he wasn't the most evil sort of guy. Sure,
No.
he does some pretty nasty stuff towards the end, but I don't know. Do you feel like it needed a more evil sort of bad guy, like a foil for everybody, or do you think
No,
he
I enjoy him as the bad guy. I think if we saw more of like how how they took the husband of Mrs. Henderson away, if we actually saw him like chucking him into the wasteland, then you would have been like, oh, this is actually a messed up dude, and this whole world is really messed up. So that would have pinned more, because when we at the end we see sort of the wasteland gate, it's a bit like, oh, this is all new information. And I feel like a quick scene of Mrs. Henderson's husband being forced to live there, this poor old man, because his wife was murdered, like that would be a good way of sort of gaining a bit of a heel for the villain.
Yeah, I felt like that because when that reveal happened with the sort of wasteland and he was willing to put Timmy out there and sort of lock the gate behind him, it did feel a bit like, oh, he's willing to go this far. I almost didn't expect him to go that far.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that happens, Fido is basically taken away, and the family are basically told he will be destroyed. And then sort of the family try and sort of rebuild a little bit in a way, like the dad gives Timmy his first handgun. Oh, you're not allowed a handgun till you're 12. He's like, well, don't worry about it. It's our little secret. Your first handgun.
I think he was more afraid that his wife had just been, attacked by a zombie, and it was just more of a safety thing for him. But I found that scene a bit strange. I didn't really know what his true motives were, and he was like looking. I don't know. I feel for some reason like there's a few scenes that may have been left on the cutting room floor of this film that may have explained some things a bit more for that character's motivations. Because it's only an hour and 32 minutes, this movie. It's not a long movie. I think an extra 10 or 15 minutes would have been okay.
I think like not long after that, when he's having a conversation with Helen, he does say, "Oh, everything's going to be all right because me and Timmy talked things through today." It's almost like his actor giving him a handgun was almost like he was trying to win back his son's like approval in a way, or maybe not even win it back, just win his son's approval. Because that is when he, even though Carrie Ann Moss has been Helen has been pregnant for a bit of this film, he's not even noticed. And even now, when she says to him, "I'm pregnant," he's like, "We're probably just putting on a little bit of weight." Apparently, she was pregnant in real life, and they added that into the story to for continuity.
That's fun. I mean, I love that what he says. He's like, "I don't think I can afford a child. Like
my salary can't afford another kid."
No, not my salary can't afford another kid. I don't think my salary can afford another funeral, because he's obviously so obsessed.
Shit, yeah, he says that
with these funerals that's all he's thinking. Not like, I'm so happy I've got a new child. That to me was like sort of the like, oh, our relationship's over if that's your first and only thought.
Yeah,
like we're done.
Oh man, that's just a great little insight into the way his very broken brain clearly works. And essentially the next part is Operation Rescue Fido. Timmy enlists Mr. Theopolis, the previous Zomcom employee. First of all, it's the what's the little girl's name? Cindy. I think it might be Cindy. she tells him that Fido's alive because she heard her dad on the phone talking about there's no such thing as a bad zombie. We've set him to work in a factory. All right. So obviously Timmy wants to go and rescue him. And we find out a little bit about why Mr. Theopolis was fired from Zomcon, and it was because he was suspected of fraternizing with the female zombie, Tammy. Uh, which we see like a bit when we see like silhouettes of them in the window at one point, and he looks like he's taken her collar off.
Yeah.
And he's like dancing in front of her, and she's like trying to bite. He's got a bite mark as well, which obviously also establishes the fact that the zombie virus is not transmitted via bite.
Yeah, it's only death apparently, which is interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but that has always been something that has always interested me in different zombie media, how they represent that. Because I always used to think the bite, no matter how small it is, even if it's a tiny little nibble, you will become a zombie after that. But some things establish it as like the bite needs to be bad enough to kill you, and then you'll come back. So you can't just have like a little nibble or something like that.
And then you got something like Resident Evil where people get bitten and turn into zombies all the time, but some characters are like can't be infected, or like you just rub some herbs on you and you're good to go. Like that's all over the place. But I kind of like the idea of if you get bit, you don't turn. That's an interesting little switch up. Like it's like, oh no, as you said, like I don't think before. I mean, I guess it's kind of hinted in Night of the Living Dead that the dead have come back to life, right? So I guess if you die, you do come back no matter what. But this really truly says like, oh, we've established you die, you're a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And I love also what Timmy says at the beginning, like, what about all those people that were buried? They're all like scraping at the bottom of their graves, and like the guy's like, moving on, don't need to talk about that. Again, and I actually like felt bad. I was thinking about all these people like in their graves, like trapped and like awful.
That just establishes again like Timmy's sort of empathy as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that he's thinking about people who have died a long time ago, and then maybe they're underground, the radiation didn't affect them. I don't know. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, I like those rules, and it reminds me of one of my favorite panels in The Walking Dead, which is when Rick goes back to Shane after finding out that no matter how you die,
brilliant.
you die, and he goes back to Shane where he buried him. And I can't remember what the dialogue is. Is it let's do this then or something like that? And then
I don't even remember if there was dialogue.
Yeah, there might not.
I just remember him getting on that motorcycle, taking that huge trip all the way back to where he buried him, digging him up. He's a zombie, shoots that motherfucker in the head, and then moves on with his life. Amazing.
I just love the fact that as soon as he found out that was his first thought, and then he went, well, that's unfinished business, essentially. I can't have this guy wandering around the world.
Yeah, no, it was, I got to make sure that that guy is dead. Like, I've killed him. I need to live with that decision. Walking Dead is my favorite comic of all time. I think I started reading that in like 2005. Like, I was there pretty early on because I'm just a freaking zombie nut loser that loves everything zombie. And I love that book, and that book was super inspiring to me. It actually inspired the first comic I ever made, which was called Dino Zombies, which was it's like Jurassic Park meets it's like combined Dino Crisis with Resident Evil, essentially. It's all happening at the same time. So I'd still like to bring that back and put it into Outbreaks as an ode to the first comic I ever made, because it was a lot of fun. But the thing about that story is I created a lot of stuff like, what if there's a girl who gets bitten and she can't turn, and her like genes are the like key to the survival. And then The Last of Us came out, and I was like, fuck.
God damn it.
And like loads of other stuff in that story. I think someone even wrote a book about zombie dinosaurs as well. And I was like, okay, well, this has happened, so it's time to move on.
I think the point I'm trying to make is I like it when certain rules are established and it just creates so many different extra scenarios. I think that's just always great. And seeing how characters react to those different scenarios and different rules as well. Obviously, Walking Dead, we had lots of In The Walking Dead, we had a lot of people dealing with trauma in various different terrifying ways. Keeping living zombie heads in tanks, keeping your
Mm.
daughter on a little lead and basically treating her like she was alive.
Well, you like in the show, we were robbed of the amazing realization that if you just die, you come back as a
Yeah,
zombie. Because the
yeah,
show was a dude whispers it into Rick's ear, and he's like, "Oh my god."
yeah,
I hate the ending of season one. I think it's terrible. But in
yeah,
the book, that when they move into the prison, they think everything's fine and they get along with the prisoners there. But they find out that they're living with a serial killer that ends up murdering some of the children in their group by
yeah.
cutting off their heads. And then when they discover the heads are zombified, and that's how they realize, oh my god, it doesn't matter how you die, you're going to be a zombie. And that's what you're talking about with the layers of
Oh
adding to the
man,
zombie stuff. I love that type of stuff. And it was done so much better in the book than in the
yeah. Just
show.
just that reveal because again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just like a close up of their like heads, like all alive, and everybody. Like we realized at the same time as the characters that that's happened.
Yeah,
So many good things in that prison arc.
yeah.
When that what's his name? He gets locked in with all the zombies. The big guy. And then we come back thinking he's dead, and he's just killed them all.
Yes, yeah. Tyrone is his name.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. And yeah, um, again, he was in the show fairly briefly. I don't think they fully took advantage of him as a character, but yeah,
no, but I
so
liked his death in the show though. When he got bitten by that zombie, and you see inside the mind of someone slowly turning into a zombie, and
oh, I
like they
don't
start
remember
like
that.
hallucinating and stuff. It's Tyrese is the character's name.
Tyrese, that's it. Did you watch?
Um.
Did you watch all of the show?
Oh yeah,
You did.
yeah.
I did.
Sadly,
I
yes, I
I did
did.
stop, but I would like to. I would like to finish. I think I watched maybe the series after, maybe like the second series that Negan was in, and then I stopped for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Oh, but that's when the world stopped because it dragged on for way too
Yeah.
long. And I actually recently rewatched all The Walking Dead with my wife. And man, when you get to Alexandria, there's one season when Rick kills this guy. You've been waiting for him to be killed, like in the town, and Rick like looks at everyone and shouts them, like, this is how you fucking survive in the
I
zombie
remember this.
apocalypse,
Yeah.
essentially. And then shows Morgan shows up, and he goes like, Rick, and like that to me, I was like, that's the peak point of The Walking Dead. Like that was it. And then yes, the build up to Negan and them killing the two characters was huge. But yeah, the show goes tremendously downhill from there. But there's parts of the Whisper War that are really good that I
That's
very
what I've
much
seen as
like.
well. I've seen none of that.
There's some stuff in there that is very cool. Like they explore the Beta character more and how he was like a famous country western singer before the zombie apocalypse, and
Wow. Okay.
which I think is really fun. And he like he like puts on one of his old records to gather up all the zombies at one point and lead
I
them
I, I do
to
like
do
Samantha
stuff.
Morton as an actress as well. She plays Alpha, doesn't she?
She
All right.
does, yeah, and she's great. And then there's some other stuff in the later seasons that I also enjoy, but it does dip tremendously in quality, like hugely. And there's some episodes in the last couple seasons that are some of the most boring, really poorly told, basic
Yeah.
stories that I've ever seen. And it's heartbreaking because it's like this show was once the biggest show on television.
Yeah.
Everyone loved it, and as my favorite book being The Walking Dead, having a TV show that was the biggest show on television was amazing to me. Like,
Yeah.
and as a zombie fan, I'm like, I'm getting zombie content up the wazoo right now, and I'm so
It just
happy.
feel so lucky, like especially when you said like all the things that like 8-year-old Will would have loved.
Yeah,
Is amazing seeing things that you loved growing up and seeing how much like talking about Resident Evil. Fine. Oh, I didn't really like the movies. I'm still super lucky the fact that my favorite games growing up, I got to see all these characters on screen in various iterations, and then The Walking Dead, really enjoying The Walking Dead, and then being like, oh my god, they're making a TV show of it, and it's great. To a
yeah,
to a
absolutely. And I'm even with Resident Evil, we're very lucky we get these amazing remasters of like number two,
yeah,
not
yeah.
number three, number four. Like those are
Where's
very,
the rest
very
of it?
good games. So yeah, as there's tons of zombie content that's very, very good,
Mm.
and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, this episode has been a zombie extravaganza, Will. I
Absolutely.
have to,
My life is a zombie extravaganza.
it's made me kind of feel like I want to reread Walking Dead as well.
I recommend it. I have been rereading it. I'm currently at sort of around the prison story, and it's great.
I think
I
I'm gonna do
like.
it.
I think Robert Kirkman is such a great like dialogue writer in terms of like just people talking to each other, and he creates like almost like soap opera, really, like just the drama levels of
Yeah.
people. Like it's way more than obviously just the zombies. Like I just love the way people communicate, and just the world
I,
building, and
I
obviously
think the
Charlie
way
Adlot's work.
Charlie Adler. Oh, I met Charlie Adler at Fault Bubble last year.
Really,
I've got a signed page just above my head.
what a
You should,
signed Walking Dead page.
I think I don't think it's an original. I think it's just a print, but still,
Oh,
uh,
okay, that's still cool.
it's still cool. It's a. I'm not sure what issue it is, but it's just a scene of Michonne and Rick just killing some walkers.
That's
Um,
awesome, man. I'm trying.
with no.
I want to get him as for a cover of Outbreaks eventually.
Oh man,
Yeah, I have to
that'd
see
be
if he'd
great.
be interested in doing it.
Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome. But yeah, when you say about Robert Kirkman, the way he writes dialogue and characters, I think it's really hard to translate that into a TV show, because it's almost like it isn't really how people talk. Does that make sense? It's like,
No, you're absolutely right.
yeah, it's
But
kind
and he
of
does
like
it well in Invincible as well as another good example of
that's
him
true.
doing the emotional drama of people talking while there's much bigger scenarios going
It
on.
just works on the page. It really works on the page. But I think translating into any other medium is difficult. And I think they maybe tried occasionally in the Walking Dead TV show, and they tried in the Telltale games as well to kind of replicate some of that decision making that characters need to do. And sometimes it worked, sometimes not so much. Okay. But yeah, let's just round let's just round up Fido. So basically they go to Zomcon. Mr. Theopolis gets them in there, and he tells Timmy where to go to essentially find him. It kind of he causes a bit of a kerfuffle, if that's that's the right word, in the sort of lobby area by turning off the collar of one of the zombies, and then that zombie starts biting people, and then a guy like shoots Tammy. Oh, I was worried that she was dead for a second. It kind of just skims off the top of her head, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And then Mr. Theopolis like attacks the guy. What does he call him? A knucklehead.
yeah.
Um, and then Timmy finds Fido. Sort of fight. I was gonna say sets him free, but I think Fido like rips his chains off, doesn't he? Like,
I can't remember.
yeah, I think so. Some kind of like Frankenstein monster things going on,
Yeah.
where he's kind of like learning from humans, where he kind of just like learning but remembering, and then sort of replicating these sort of like human interactions as well, which I thought was really good.
Mm.
Yeah, so then his parents come after him. Bill goes in with a gun. This is kind of like his redemption moment, isn't it? Like it's him trying to say, "I'm a good dad." I mean, he literally says it, doesn't he? He literally says, "I'm a good dad," rushing in to sort of help him.
I mean,
Um,
not really, because he doesn't really help him at all. Timmy finds a way to escape. I mean, I
yeah,
guess he distracted him so Timmy could
yeah.
escape. So I guess that's something.
Maybe his presence at least was enough. Um, yeah. So what happens then is Jonathan Bottoms, the big head honcho of Zomco, basically shows Timmy the wild zone and says like, "This is what's going to happen to you and your family." And he locks him out there, I guess, to like teach him a lesson. I don't think he's actually going to leave him to die, is he? But still. But then Fido and his
Well, we
dad
don't
turn up.
know. He might leave him
No,
there to
no,
die.
exactly, yeah, exactly. What would he? How far would he have gone? But Fido kills Jonathan, rips his neck out, um, and then and Timmy manages to get back in. Well, again, he gets back in on his own, doesn't he? Unlocks the thing, and the zombies start piling in, but Helen managed to shoot a few of them to save them as well.
And I
Yeah,
love it's a great scene of all the people getting ripped apart by zombies,
yeah,
and it's great to see like there's a scientist that like has zombies come around him. I was like, this is like the opening like vignette of Resident Evil, like was it 2 or 3 when it's like all the cops being killed by the zombies. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. I was just like, this is the good stuff. I love this.
It's another weird thing because there is obviously TV, so there's like a TV, there's like a news report which is saying that there was an outbreak at
Hmm.
Zomcon, and they kind of blame. What do they blame it on? I think they just say that there was some rednecks who ventured out into the wild zone to hunt zombies, and
Yes, yeah.
yeah. But again, it's strange that we don't really sort of find out like how well, maybe this is the details we don't want, but like how TV works in this world. Why is it still going? Whether the TV is it just run by Zomcon? Possibly,
It's
probably.
true. Yeah, it could be yeah, that's absolutely true.
Then we get a funeral for Bill, who got shot by Jonathan. Headless funeral he always wanted to prevent his zombification. Fido's at the funeral in a lovely suit, a different suit, right? Not
Yeah,
Bill's suit,
different suit. Yeah.
brand new suit. Yeah, and essentially the film ends with Fido's like a surrogate father to Timmy, Helen, and then they've got a newborn baby as well. I don't think we find out who the name is. What the name of the baby is. Fido's punching a dart, enjoying a lovely cigarette. He's got a Hawaiian shirt
Yeah.
on. Clearly lives a
Fido
happy life.
Fido is living the life that I aspire to of having a chill time in a Hawaiian shirt, having a fag, playing with my new baby, waving to my beautiful wife, like in my lovely suburban house.
There we
Like
go.
it's a fantastic ending where I'm like, we can all aspire to be Fido in a way. Like, and like he has a huge smile on his face at the end in a very Fido way, with just showing his teeth with his head turned, like
He's absolutely loving life,
yeah,
100%. And who can blame him? Who can blame him, indeed? And then of course we find out that Jonathan, the Zomcon head honcho, is a zombie as well. But Cindy, his daughter, is actually kind of loving it because he's nicer than he was before, and now she's just dragging him around on his lead. And that's it. We've got like domestic bliss. It ends with domestic bliss
that's
for
right.
everybody involved, which is all everybody ever wanted, it seems. Okay. And that is Fido. So I've got a little bit of something called Name Game for you, Will.
Okay,
Basically, I'm going to describe the synopsis of a movie that sounds very similar to Fido, but isn't Fido. So based on my clue, you have to work out the name of this movie.
okay,
It'll just rhyme with Fido. That's it. Okay. So in 1950s suburbia, space radiation is turning the dead into zombies. Everybody, including a British singer who once did a duet with Eminem.
is that it? That ends there.
That's it. What's the name of the movie?
A British singer that wants to duet with Eminem.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like
Is
I'm
it
an
is
idiot
it
for
is it too niche? I can't think of any other songs this lady did.
lady.
Oh my god, her real name is Jesus Florian Cloud de Bonneville O'Malley Armstrong. What?
Okay. Ah, yes, Floridil, Florentine,
Florida Florentine.
Armani.
I'm trying to think of what else she sang. I can't think of any of her songs. But yeah, the song was Stan. I can even give you a little bit.
Oh, okay. The and I can
Please
see
look
it all.
underwear.
Yeah,
So I think it was from another song called Thank You.
it was. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's so bad. Yeah, that was song. Yeah, dear Stan. I haven't heard that in a while.
Do you know what it is?
What the name of this thing that you've
The name of
created?
this film. Yeah.
This is actual really this is a real film.
I feel like I always confuse people with what this game entails. It just rhymes with Fido based on my clue. So essentially what singer was I describing? Who rhymes with Fido, who duet with Eminem.
I have no idea, mate.
It's Dido.
Dido. What are you talking about?
The singer's name is Dido.
I
That's
thought
the
you just
name
said
of
her
the
name
singer.
was Florence of Arabia or whatever.
That's her real name. Her stage
Oh,
name is Dido. So
Dido.
Dido.
Okay.
So Eminem featuring Dido.
Well, I Dido not know who that is.
I feel like the rules of the game would have been easily established if you knew who Dido was. To be
Yes.
fair, this is probably the first time I've said Dido out loud since that song.
So are all the questions going to rhyme with Fido? The answers,
Kind of.
kind of. Oh,
I feel
great!
like
I love. I
now
love.
I felt now that we've started with what I thought was the easiest one.
Right.
I'm gonna say no.
Well, I tell you what, most of the music I listen to is from like 1970 and below. So Dido wasn't really on my list of
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
people to
You
listen
were like,
to.
hang on, man, this is too bloody new. This music from
Yeah, well,
2001.
Eminem, that's brand new music.
Eminem, there's little chocolates or something. What's going on here? Okay, well, I apologize for the next one because you're probably not gonna get this one over. Suburban 1950s, space radiation turns all the dead into zombies, and some people are attendants at, fuck's sake, at a swimming pool relaxation area. Sometimes you've got like a
Oh,
little
I
cafe.
know what I think I know the answer.
Yes,
Is the film called Lilo?
it's not, but Lilo's also a good one.
What? Okay, well, sorry, continue the question then.
But that's it. That's all I had. This one literally rhymes with Fido, and it's similar to what you just said.
Oh, all I had was swimming pool and relaxing, so I just assumed Lilo.
Lilo's a perfectly legitimate answer, but it's not that. Again, I don't know if this might be a local dialect thing, but this is what we've got in Bristol.
A Tido, like a tidal pool or something like that.
This is what the official
Wave
Wikipedia
pool.
describes it as: a
Okay.
public outdoor swimming pool surrounded by facilities, part of a beach where people can swim, lie in the sun, or participate in water sports. Not like that.
Okay, and what's it called?
A Lido.
A Lido. Okay. No, that does sound familiar. I think I should get half a point for saying Lilo because
I'll give you half a point for that.
Yeah.
There's no leaderboard anywhere though, I'm afraid.
Well,
Because
as long as I have half a point, it's fine.
usually I'm on the receiving end of this from Andy, and I'll be totally honest, I struggle almost every time. So
Okay.
don't feel bad in any way. I feel like I need to come up with a better way of describing the game because the amount of times I describe the game and then people still go, "What are you on about?" So
I get it now that the game is rolling.
oh, you do? That's right. You only need one. This one might be slightly different. So in suburban 1950s, space radiation turns the dead into zombies, all apart from a homeless person who drinks excessive amount of cheap wine or other alcohol.
A wino?
Yeah,
A
a wino.
wino junko.
A wino junko. And that's slightly different because I changed the letter there. And the last one I would do would be Lilo, just for you, but you've got that already.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So that's all good. There we go. You got them all right.
No, I did not. I did not get Dido.
We've got the last thing we've got to do, Will, is just rate the movie from A to F. Pluses and minuses are allowed. Rate good or rate bad. Where do you think you would fall on that scale for Fido?
I give Fido a solid C plus.
Okay. That's pretty. I mean, care to elaborate on that? Do you just think just because it's a
maybe a B minus? Yeah, I'll give it a B minus actually because there's a lot.
B minus.
Yeah, there's a lot in this. The world building, I love just this world. I don't think that the main story itself is the best story for this world. I just think all the other side stories, and I just wanted to know more about what was going on with this zone and this, that, and the other. So I'm here for the universe they've established. I wasn't really here for the story that they told. And I did feel a bit like when the movie starts, I'm super into the film. I love the way they establish everything. But the moment I think he takes Fido to the park is when I'm like, I didn't really see, like, this is not exactly what I was picturing for this, but and look, it still averted my expectations. Any movie that can, if I can't guess what's going to happen next, I pretty much genuinely enjoy, because there's nothing worse than sitting and watching something where you know exactly what's going to happen. Case in point, I just watched that new movie Tim on Netflix, where it's like a robot that's living with like a couple, and like he ends up being a crazy murderous robot. And me and my wife sat and we called the whole plot as the film was happening, even to the last line used in the movie and everything. And it's like such a bore when that happens, because where's the fun? It's like, come on, I'm trying to be entertained here. But yeah, a solid B minus. I love the aesthetic of the 50s. I think all the acting in the film is tremendous. The child acting is great as well. It's missing a little extra something for me. But yeah, B minus, I'd say.
I wasn't trying to nudge you higher than C plus.
I think I was being too harsh with a C plus anyway, so B minus.
I had down like B/B minus. Because as I said, I think I've seen it before and I enjoyed it as much this time around. I think the world building's really good. It reminds me of stuff that I really enjoy, like Fallout that we already mentioned. And yeah, it kind of establishes rules that it would be really interesting to find out more about in other in whether there was a sequel or like a mini series around that world. I'd be game to watch it. So, and the performance of Billy Connolly is great as well. The fact it's just such a weird person to have playing that role. I know he's been in movies, but it just feels kind of odd, doesn't it? But I like it. I think it's a really good performance. So I think maybe B minus is probably fair. Because it's a very unique zombie movie as well. So there we go. Fido. What a time. So thank you for joining us, Will. Where can our listeners find out more from you and all the projects you're working on? Obviously, I will put the link to the Kickstarter in the show notes as well.
Okay. Anybody can find me on any of my social media, which is usually at Robson Inc., and that's ROBSONINK. And you can see me working on whatever I'm drawing for Marvel and DC. Currently, I'm drawing Howard the Duck for his 50th anniversary, which comes out in November, I believe. And it's a short little story, which is a what if story. What if Howard the Duck was Star-Lord? So I'm drawing the Guardians of the Galaxy and Howard the Duck, and it's a lot of fun and silly shenanigans ensue. So you can see stuff like that there. Please obviously check out Outbreaks on Kickstarter. As I said, like just because we're funded, the train doesn't stop here. As we continue to get more money coming in, the stretch goals get unlocked, which means free content for people. I'm talking free trading cards. We got free upgrades to the book and behind the scenes. My brain's not working right now. What's it called? The director's cut, which is when you get to see just the pencils of everything. You get to see the kind of like behind the scenes work of the book. And I said more trading cards. And eventually, if I raise enough money, then I will write and draw a whole extra story in the book absolutely for free. Because one of my goals is that when you back this project and we get overfunded, you're going to get more bang for your buck. I'm happy to just take that money and give it right back to people so they can feel that it's truly a worth time experience backing this project. So thank you everybody that's backed so far. Thank you for backing so far, mate. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
And backing the first campaign as well. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, so check me out on those places. And if you would like to read a story for free from Outbreaks, head to my website, speechcomics.com, and you can read Dead-Eye Dick Chapter 1 absolutely for free. And if you like that, that's the type of thing we're going for in our book, then head on over to the Kickstarter and back for yourself.
Amazing. Highly, highly recommended. I'll put links to everything that was just mentioned in the show notes, so go and check them out. So there we go. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to our current patrons, including John Crinnan, Stephen Christopher, Toby Miller, Pazuzu, Lane Spencer, Ollie Child, Leslie Carlo, Julia Bilgren, Nick Spill, Troy Burst, Rosalind Harnies, and Ben Scaife. Did I say that twice? I don't know why I read the list like from down to up, and then like halfway through I switched. What an idiot. Okay. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review. Head over to the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors for more. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Just search Horror Hangout Podcast. You'll find us there. Next week, we're talking about Phantasm 2 with returning guest Aaron Truss and new guest director Jake West. So tune in for that one. And thanks again, Will.
Thank you for having me. I'll happily come on and chat more zombies and more Resident Evil in the future.
More zombies, more Resident Evil. But yeah, that has been a zombie extravaganza. That was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.